It's down to a pair of NFC South rivals. A bitter, nasty, throw eggs at the team bus rivalry, and that did happen at one point to the Saints when they arrived at the airport in Atlanta. These two teams hate each other, and now they are in a tug of war for a franchise quarterback, one of the best 5 in the NFL, hasn't played in a year, but Deshaun Watson, unless somebody else swoops in. And, Peter, if the Rams didn't have Matthew Stafford, I'd say wait for the Rams to swoop in. But it's going to be the Falcons or it's going to be the Saints. And Watson, I was told Wednesday night he was torn between the 4. And I think he did what you do. When you have 4 that you can't choose from, instead of picking one, you pick one to drop. So he picked the Browns first. Then he picked the Panthers second. Now it's down to the Panthers, or not, the Panthers second. Now it's down to the Saints or the Falcons. And who knows when he's going to make a decision. I would assume by the end of the weekend, though, we're going to know what Deshaun Watson's going to do.
You know, Mike, I think that it's interesting. The two teams that are involved, obviously do have this rivalry, but they also, both teams, have to have judged that they can withstand whatever public criticism, whatever fan-related criticism is going to come to them. And, they know their fan bases better than anybody else. But I think if he does sign with the Saints, let's say, and even if he doesn't sign with the Saints, it's clear that the Saints are all in on this. So I'll be very interested to hear what Gail Benson says, because there's going to be a lot of women, rightfully so, who are going to say to Gail Benson, what about the 22 aggrieved women who have complained of sexual assault or serious sexual harassment by Deshaun Watson? And then in Atlanta, Arthur Blank, who has been a champion of all, and who has been very, very clear, who started, a huge flag football organization for women in the state of Georgia. Arthur Blank did. And so both teams are going to have very serious questions to answer. And that is, how much is too much? Or how much will you overlook if the talent is there in a player? And in my opinion, I just think, Mike, we've totally glossed over the football media. Not totally. 90% glossed over this story, the part of this story that has nothing to do with, oh my God, can you imagine how great Deshaun Watson is going to be after this speed bump of a half-season suspension is going to be? I mean, the whole thing is hugely distasteful to me. Hugely. And it bothers me a lot. And in my opinion, I think that if I owned a team, I'd tell my general manager, we are only getting involved in this. And if it means we don't get them, we don't get them. We're only getting involved in this after this entire thing has been adjudicated and it's over. And if that means we don't get them, fine. I'll play with Teddy Bridgewater. And if we're going to lose games, we're going to lose games. I just find this whole thing massively distasteful.
And I understand exactly what you're saying. I think these teams are doing a more long-term calculation here, and they're looking at how things have happened in the past. I think back to 2010, and when Ben Roethlisberger was dealing with the aftermath of the allegation that was made against him in Millersville, Georgia, this same month, and the people in Pittsburgh, the fans, they wanted him gone. I would tune into talk radio in Pittsburgh, and it would be one petty grievance after another. Any interaction anyone's ever had with Ben Roethlisberger anywhere, he was rude to me. He cut in line in front of me at the Subway restaurant. I mean, seriously, that was the style. They hated the guy in the aftermath of these allegations. They wanted him out. The Steelers considered trading him. At the end of the day, they didn't. He served his suspension. He came back. They went to the Super Bowl that year, lost to the Packers, and by 2011, I don't want to say it was forgotten. By 2012, 2013, 2014, it sure was. By the time he retired, it never happened. It was never even mentioned. I felt like when I dared to mention it in the aftermath of that Monday night, let's just go ahead and send Ben Roethlisberger straight up to the heavens from this football field as this game ends. That's how perfect of a wrap to his career that it was. I felt like I was going to get dragged for pointing out, this guy had a pretty rough time in 2010. It was pretty bad in 2010. It was as bad as it could get. And he only had 2 people who ever accused him of anything, not 22. 2. And it was as bad as... So, and I think that these teams, and I hate to be cynical, but we know how this works. This is a billion-dollar business, and it's getting bigger all the time. And you have no chance to contend on a regular basis if you don't have a franchise quarterback. This is a franchise quarterback. And it's true in every sport. The better you are, the easier it is to get people to overlook the warts. So here you have a guy who's capable of being a top 5 talent in the NFL, and there are a lot of warts there. And right now, we had 4 teams, 1 out of 8, falling all over themselves to try to get Deshaun Watson. And there may have been more that contacted the Texans that either didn't put enough on the table to get admission, because that's what the Texans did. They wanted your trade offer before they were going to let you meet with Deshaun Watson. And that was brilliant, because if you don't do that, and Deshaun Watson decides, hey, this is the team that I will play for, this is the only team I'm waiving my no-trade clause for, then you're screwed. So they were smart to say, before we even let you talk to him, we have to be happy with your trade. So there were 4 that they said, you can talk to him, we're happy with your proposal, it's up to him. And, hey, Peter, there is going to be a reaction. But I think whether it's Gail Benson, Arthur Blank, David Tepper, or Jimmy Haslam, all things will pass. And once the dust settles on this, once it's all over, once he serves his suspension, once we process whatever criticism there's going to be, we're going to have a franchise quarterback. And, there may have been plenty of other teams that refused to go down that path, and maybe that's why they're not at the table right now. But out of 31, there were 4 that were willing to do it. And now Watson is willing to play for one of 2, and we'll find out which one is going to have the benefit and the short-term burden. We'll know by Monday, I think.
I look at 2 teams that I think a lot of people thought would be involved, who certainly had the ammunition to be involved, who didn't get involved. Now, maybe we'll find out why they didn't get involved. Maybe the distastefulness of chasing a guy who's got 22 civil suits pending was just too much. But didn't, after the Russell Wilson affair, didn't we all think that the Seahawks were probably going to get involved? Didn't we think that the Philadelphia Eagles, with 3 picks in the top 20 of this draft, probably were going to get involved? Now, it could be that Watson signaled right away, look, I don't want to go to Philadelphia. Or, look, I don't want to go to Seattle. We don't know that right now. But I do think that there are some teams that made the conscious choice. We are not going to get involved with Deshaun Watson with this gigantic sexual sword of Damocles hanging over his head. And to them, I say, congratulations, good job.
The Eagles are confusing to me because it was in 2009 that they threw the doors open for Mike Vick. Now, Andy Reid was there, and I think Andy Reid is a guy who is very big on giving people second chances and opportunities for redemption. He's long gone, and obviously he's got Patrick Mahomes, so this isn't an analysis for him. But the Vic thing was pretty serious, and I know there are a lot of people saying it's just dogs, it's just dogs. The things he admitted to doing to dogs, the killing of dogs deemed unfit. Dogs deemed unfit to die while fighting other dogs were deliberately killed at the involvement of Mike Vick, drowned, electrocuted, strangled. It's horrific. When you look at the document where he made his various admissions to the government as to what he did and why he did it, and he wasn't available to make a quick return because he was in prison, but as soon as he was eligible, he was back. And the Eagles didn't nearly take as much flack for it as I thought they would. So, Jeffrey Lurie already has gone down this path before.
I think they took a massive amount, Mike.
Not as much as I thought they should.
Massive amount.
Well, yeah, it was all forgotten when It was all forgotten by 2010 when Mike Vick was the starter again.
You know what I think the difference is? Mike Vick had done his 17 months in Leavenworth. Mike Vick was a free man. He had paid his debt to society. And I realize what that debt was over. I get it. Okay? But all Deshaun Watson has done to this point, and again, I realize that it's totally apples and oranges, but all he's done is get paid to not play football. So we are still in progress of this thing. And I have always been one of those people who say that, look, once a person has paid his debt to society, whatever that debt is and whatever the crime was, he should be allowed to go out and earn a living. Okay? And so to me, I shouldn't say I never had any problem. I understand it's a complicated situation. But to me, Mike Vick had every right to go out and if somebody wanted to give him a chance, to take that chance. And I'll just say this. I really wonder, one thing I've heard in this whole process, you may have heard the same thing. I really wonder what, if any, role the friendship, and I have no idea how deep a friendship it is, what kind of relationship it is between Deshaun Watson and Michael Vick is, and whether it's had any impact on this, whether Vick has advised him in any way, shape, or form. But it's just something that's gone through my head that if I were Deshaun Watson, I would want to talk to somebody who not only would have been my hero as a kid when I was growing up outside of Atlanta, watching football and wanting to be like this guy. I would think that they've had some discussions about what, I don't know. But I do think that that's going to be an interesting part of this story whenever it is told.
You said something important there, Peter. And again, this is a difficult, challenging subject, and we understand that people have rights. Those rights will be adjudicated in civil court. We're not in a position to assess the evidence. We're not asking the questions. We're not there witnessing the answers. We don't know what the evidence is. We don't know what it isn't. There's been some stuff publicly available, but the bulk of the evidence, as in most cases, will be available only to the people directly involved. But you said Mike Vick paid his debt to society. And you're right. Deshaun Watson has no debt to society. Deshaun Watson 1 week ago today was deemed to have no even potential debt to society. A grand jury decided not to indict him on any charges. There can be no debt to society. He's even more free and clear than Mike Vick was in 2009. Civil cases...
How can he be with 22 civil suits?
Because civil suits are not criminal charges, Peter. Civil suits don't matter in the eyes of the debt to society. O.J. Simpson had no debt to society, even though he killed those people. Well, it should matter, but my point is this. It makes it even harder to compare
10
Mike
or
Vick
15 years
to Deshaun
after he
Watson.
stopped playing football.
No. Well, I know, but I'm just saying it's an example of the difference between the debt to society and the outcome of a civil lawsuit. Plenty of people get sued. People get sued for all sorts of things. The outcome of a civil lawsuit results in no debt to society. It only results in a debt to the person who successfully wins at trial. There are all sorts of heinous activities that never result in a criminal charge that do result in a civil verdict. I'm just saying this is something the NFL's never had to deal with. When the NFL has disciplined players in the past, except for Ben Roethlisberger, but Roethlisberger, I believe, settled potential civil claims with his victim in Georgia in lieu of that person pressing charges. So it brings it into that hybrid of criminal and civil. In this case, no criminal charges, but 22 pending civil cases. What do you do about 22 pending civil cases? At what point do you reach critical mass? Because there was only one, Peter, if there was only one civil case pending against Deshaun Watson making these allegations, pick the worst of the 22. If that's the only one pending, I don't think the league does anything, and I don't think the teams even hesitate for a half second. What's the number between 1 and 22 where it becomes, just by sheer volume, well, this is something that is a major problem? But again, there's no criminal charges. This is something the NFL has never had to deal with before, and I think because of that, there's going to be an inclination to wait as long as they have to do something, because the NFL has learned the hard way in the past that if they do something prematurely, they make a mistake. And again, I said this earlier.
Question.
If he's ultimately exonerated, what are you disciplining him for?
But let me ask you this question. Do you think it's possible that they wait until 2023 to discipline him?
It's possible if they decide to wait until the cases end, and if he doesn't settle the cases and he fights them all the way through trial, it's possible. But they don't. To their credit,
that might make the most sense in light of what you're saying.
Yeah. But then they'd have to let him play the whole year, and they'd have to deal with the fact that these 22 civil cases are pending. But, hey, the Patriots were going to keep Antonio Brown after he was sued for sexual assault and rape in September of 2019. They didn't cut him until Robert Klemko reported that there was someone else that had a claim against Antonio Brown, and there was evidence that he was retaliating against that person, sharing her story with Klemko. He was at SI at the time.
Right.
And that's when the Patriots said, that's it, get out of here. They were not going to cut him over a civil claim of sexual assault and rape because there's an acknowledgement. Anybody can sue anyone for anything. Now, when there's 22, you start to think there must be a problem. And I think that's kind of where we are here. The sheer numbers make us say something's not right here. And that's what puts the NFL in a tougher spot. And they may have to do something. And I've said this before. You can take the letter that the commissioner sent to Ben Roethlisberger in 2010, and you can cut and paste it, and you can use that language to justify suspending Deshaun Watson based upon what we already know. And we know that the commissioner has full and complete discretion to do whatever he wants. The appeal rights are minimal. The discretion is extremely broad. It's all going to come down to how he chooses to use it. And we know how this goes with the NFL. It's always driven by PR. But it's a tough one. If you're too aggressive with Deshaun Watson, you got a PR problem. If you're not aggressive enough, you got a PR problem. Either way, they have a problem. And the best way to deal with it may be to just wait and see how these civil cases turn out.
I mean, the more you talk about it, the more logical it seems. Because, look, if they're not going to know, and I think we both feel like we're not going to know before training camp what is going on. The one last thing I would say on this. What if Deshaun Watson says, I just want this to go away. I just want this to go away. Here's X million dollars and give me my suspension and let me come back with a clean slate on November 10th. And then I'm never talking about this again. I'm never dealing with it again. I mean, I think, and I've thought this many times, I don't know how Deshaun Watson is going to play football without this being a huge factor and a huge thing in his head, if he's fighting these civil lawsuits at the same time. I mean, I don't know. If I were him, man, I would want this just to go away. And again, you can't just make it go away, obviously. And you've got to show sincere remorse if you were going to make some sort of settlement. But again, we get all the sense in the world right now, Mike, that he says, I didn't do anything wrong. So, we'll see what happens. But I do think this is a sort of Damocles over his head and over the league's head.
I said in March of 2021, it was incumbent to get everyone in the room together, find a retired judge or some other neutral party to broker a mediation aimed at settling the claim so that the individuals feel like their claims were properly heard, taken seriously, and they got fair compensation for whatever they endured, whatever they believe they endured. But, the problem is Watson's camp has decided to go after some of these folks, and they believe some of these claims are very weak. They believe some of these people just latched on to the train that was already rolling. Hey, hell, we got this lawsuit, and we're going to get paid by Deshaun Watson. So I'm saying that's the attitude that Watson's camp has. That some of these folks really didn't have a claim, didn't have a beef, didn't have a grievance until they saw that there was an effort to go after Deshaun Watson. That's what Watson's camp has been pushing for the past year. And under those circumstances, maybe all you can do is fight these. And maybe there's a few of them that you decide we just need to work out a settlement, that maybe there was a line that was crossed. but maybe for the vast majority of them, they hold firm and they fight. But this is not an easy situation for anybody. And I think this has been a useful conversation because you're right. The issue has been glossed over as we begin this rush to Deshaun Watson 2.0, and he's going to come back. He's going to take the league by storm. He's in an unprecedented mess. The league is in an unprecedented mess, and either the Saints or the Falcons is going to inherit that unprecedented mess, and it's going to be part of the organization moving forward for as long as Deshaun Watson is there.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.